So our last presentation is by Xiaoying Wang, Disentangling Representations of Object Shape and Manipulation in Tool-Related Brain Regions.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present one of our recent research. And I'm going to talking about the object shape and manipulation representations in the tool-related networks. And it has been well established that the perception of tools activate a large lateralized cortical network, including frontoparietal regions and occipital-temporal regions. And what are the exact roles of these regions in tool processing remains unclear. And so there's our evidences suggesting that functional dissociation between dorsal regions and ventral regions with dorsal frontoparietal regions and the lateral occipital temporal cortex might implicated in computing action-related properties of tools, and the ventral occipital temporal regions were implicated in processing of object shapes. Well, for tools, the shapes and their ways of manipulation are highly correlated, and so it remains inconclusive what our shapes and ways of manipulation were separately represented in the two areas. So the aim of our study is to investigate, to disentangle these two properties in the tool network. And so what we do here is we use four particular tools, which are the corkscrew, the screwdriver, the shaver, and the paintbrush, and to form a 2x2 design with the corkscrew and the shaver with similar shape, and also these bottom two pairs are of similar shape, and the columns have the similar ways of manipulation. And we asked 21 college students to participate in our experiment, and they viewed blocks of pictures of these four tools and made a judgment about the pictures. And specifically for each block, there's a tool name presented at the very beginning, and then followed by 7 pictures of these tools. And the participants were asked to judge whether there is any oddball item which is inconsistent to the name of the tools. And the reason why we use these 4 particular tools is that the two pairs with similar shapes, they have quite different ways of manipulation, and it's also true for the two pairs with similar manipulation. They are quite different in shapes. So this makes it possible for us to disentangle these two properties. And so to investigate the shape and manipulation properties, we compute the information index, which have been used in Marius, a paper of Marius in JN 2012. And then we computed the shape information as like we first extracted the activation pattern to each of the 4 tools in the regions we are interested in, and then we computed the neural similarities between all the pairs of tools, and then we compute the shape information and manipulation information. The shape information was computed as the differences between the mean correlations between two pairs with similar shapes and the mean correlations of the two pairs which are different in both dimensions, and similarly for the manipulation information. And to further controlling for the confounding effect, To further control for the confounding effect of one factor when investigating the other one, so we also collected behavior similarity ratings from an independent group of students. And here are the behavior results, and taken the investigation of manipulation information as example. When we investigate the manipulation information, sorry, I don't know why this happens. When we investigate the manipulation information, we want to make sure that the effect we observed was not driven by the shape similarity confounds. And so we tested the interested pairs for testing manipulation information, and we found that for these 4 pairs interested, the last pair, it has a significant shape confounding effect. So this pair was not entered into the further analysis to make sure that we observed the real motor manipulation information. And we did the similar analysis for the investigation of the shape effect, and we found there's no significant manipulation confounding effect, and so all of these pairs were entered into the further analysis. And here's come to the brain results. We first do the analysis in functionally defined 2 selective ROIs. We define these ROIs by contrasting tools with large non-manipulable objects, and we get results very inconsistent to the previous literature. And then shape information and motor information was computed for each ROI. And here are the results. We can see that in the bilateral lateral occipital temporal cortex, there's are very significant shape effect in these regions, while there's no manipulation information observed. While in the bilateral superior parietal regions, as well as the left precentral regions, there's are both of these 2 effects observed. And in the left inferior frontal regions, we observed a trend of significance of the manipulation information, but not the shape information. We also did comparisons between the shape and manipulation information to examine the specificity of these ROIs, and we found that the bilateral LOTC regions show very high specificity to shapes, and the left inferior frontal regions, as well as the left superior frontal precentral regions, they showed a trend of manipulation specificity, but it does not reach the significance. And for other regions, these 2 properties are more comparable to each other. And we also did whole brain searchlight analysis, and we found very similar results with the ROI analysis. We found that bilateral occipital temporal regions were very sensitive to shape information, and but there's no significant manipulation information observed, while the manipulation information was observed in the left precentral regions as well as in the right superior frontal and inferior frontal regions. Well, the comparison between the 2 properties in the whole brain also give similar results, and as in the RI analysis, we found that specificity of shape information in the bilateral occipital temporal regions and extending to some of the parietal regions, while manipulation information it's not survived from the multiple correction, but there's some trend of specificity of manipulation information in the right precentral regions. And to summarize, by carefully teasing apart shape and manipulation information, we found both dissociation and associations of these two properties in the brain, and with the bilateral occipital-temporal regions represent strong shape information, but not manipulation information, while the parieto-frontal regions show both shape and manipulation information, but the frontal regions seems exhibited a trend of more stronger manipulation information. And that's all of my speech, and I want to thank to Professor Chao Bi and our lab members, and especially Tonghe Zhang, who is also here, who did conduct the experiment and do the data analysis. And thanks for your attention.
That was a really nice talk, thank you. Do you think it's possible that one reason you were able to get such strong dissociations of manipulation information and shape information is that the manipulations you studied were really arm movement manipulations and not hand postural manipulations? That is, from my work and other people's work, we know that there are shared representations for actions and objects in the so-called ventral stream, or the posterior temporal lobe, right? Mm-hmm. And so some kind of manipulation information is represented, whether it's motoric or not is a matter of great debate. But I think one reason you were able to get this strong dissociation is you used arm wristing and extension actions. What do you think?
Yes, I'm also curious about, like, I didn't find any manipulation information in the lateral occipital temporal regions, which has been implicated in, like.
And I think that might be why.
Yeah.
Because of the kind of manipulations you used.
I don't know, maybe, and I think maybe because the shape information is quite low level in this study, and so maybe it's overwhelmed, the manipulation information is overwhelmed by the shape information. It's also a possibility, and as you suggested, it may be like that. What we studied is very specific, like hand movement. Maybe there's other actions will suggest a different result.
Thanks. I was just wondering on the latter plot, the whole brain analysis, you're looking at the manipulation more than shape, I think, there. And I was just thinking that I understand, if you're trying to bring apart those two factors, why you would do that. But at the same time, it feels like it's a very specific, particular factor. And in reality, I can think of a lot of regions, sort of another contrast of interest may have been manipulation and shape, right? In the sense that there's going to be, by throwing out shape, by having on the negative side of the contrast, you're going to sort of throwing out a lot of things. And I think a lot of relevant areas would have both manipulation and shape, and sort of contrasting them might not be a completely ecologically valid approach, I guess.
Yes, that's true. Thank you.
Am I allowed to comment on a question? Laurel's comment, Laurel's comment, is not clear to me what led you to make the claim we're making, Laurel, because Stefania Bracci has shown many experiments that in this part of the brain there is a correspondence, some kind of co-activation of both hands and therefore hand shapes and tools. That's not the same thing as action. That is the fact that hands have particular shapes and they have configurations that can grasp objects of a particular size is not the same thing as action. The issue here is whether you have action information. Now, it can be implicit in a hand shape associated with a tool, but that is an inference that is not available in the visual stimulus. So I'm not sure what the force of your question or comment is. The point that there's no, the fact that there's no action information in that part of the brain is not the same thing as there not being information about effectors. Now, those can be there, but not the same thing as action.
Actually, my comment really wasn't about action or not action, or about the format or the nature of the representation. It was actually about the body parts and the scale, the shape of the motion, perhaps. But so hand posture was not something that was explicitly that was used to as on the manipulation dimension. Hand posture per se was not the critical thing that determined whether the actions were similar or dissimilar. It was the arm, it was the wrist twisting, right, or not, right? So my only comment was just that it's possible, had the study looked at postural similarity of the hand, that there would have been a lot more difficulty disentangling the shape and the so-called action representation. And in fact, Stefania Bracci and Marius's work was very much what I was thinking of. So is that a little clearer? So you have to be very careful when you talk about manipulation. Manipulation, the study didn't show anything about manipulation per se. It just showed when the objects that you were able to disentangle two dimensions, and then we infer what those dimensions were, or we infer in the behavioral sorting study. Did people explicitly think about hand posture? Did they think about wrist posture, wrist movement? We don't know exactly how they determined the manipulation similarity, right?
When we asked the participants to rate the hand gestures when using these tools, and so and they gave these manipulation similarity results. So I think it's more related to like the hand gestures, and for the screwdriver and corkscrew, they are more like rotate. And
but that's not. I'm sorry. That we don't. That's not a hand posture. So the posture of the hand is the same. For the screwdriver and the corkscrew have a very similar hand position, and I'm sorry, a similar wrist rotation is what makes them similar, right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. I guess I'm to some of you who don't study this, it may sound like I'm splitting hairs, but the way you encode these things ends up being very important. We can talk later, but.
Let's not appeal to authority. I study these things too, Laurel, and I think that your analysis is wrong. That is, the claim is here that she's not finding an effect of manipulation. Then you can split the hairs, as you say, into looking at those that involve the hand and those that involve the arm and so on. We already know from the work of Bracci and others that in fact in this area where you have tool effects, you also have hand effects and hand posture effects. That's known, but that is a claim about the hand. It is not a claim about function. And what she's testing is a very different hypothesis. She's saying, if you have a screwdriver, and a screwdriver has a particular function, is the function of the screwdriver that is driving this area? And what she's saying is no. It is not the function as such. The way in which a screwdriver works is that you have to do this kind of rotation and so on, and that is the motor element of the function of a screwdriver. So I don't see what you're objecting to. You're objecting to something she wasn't testing.
I think we should ask our questions to her, not to each other. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you can see the shapes in the stimuli, and you have to, in the scanner, there's no mention of shape or manipulation. You just have to, you're just judging, are they both screwdrivers, are they both whatever? Yeah. So you can see the shapes.
Yes.
And you might or might not think about how you manipulate them in this task, but you can't help see the shapes. So maybe the reason the effects of the shared manipulation are so much weaker, and you don't find any region that very significantly favors that over shape, just derives from the fact that your participants in this task aren't, they could think about the things that aspect of these tools. They are correlated with their function, but the function of a screwdriver is to put something in, and the function of a corkscrew is to take something out. So it's not the same function, right? It is the same. It is the same action.
Yes, that's right.
So one question is, I don't know this literature at all, but what if you try to do a classifier based on shared function at an abstract level, actual function, like putting something in or opening, right, where there's lots of different ways you can open, lots of different motions you can use. If you're opening a box, you might use both hands, and if you're opening a cap, you use the same kind of rotation as. Do you find classifiers in tasks like this that are orthogonal to shape for other high-level? Why are the hypotheses so low level that you're testing here about how could be organizing this, namely shared sort of sensory motor things, as opposed to the actual semantic features of functions of artifacts?
Well, I admit that there's some, maybe there's some confounding effect that the low level, the shape effect was driven by very low level factors. Yeah.
But the question is, what are the alternatives that one could look for?
Yeah, the reason I do this study to disentangle shape and manipulation is because that for tools, we know that the shape highly indicated the way of manipulation of the tools. So these two properties are highly correlated for tools. And for the two selective regions, which property is processed in these regions, and I'm interested in this. And so I studied whether these regions possessed like shape properties or or manipulation properties, maybe, and if there's this distinction, maybe it suggests that different two selective regions might be driven by different reasons. Yes, that's the reason why I did the research.
One last comment.
Just an observation that in terms of the manipulation similarities, they are actually partial. So, but because you do the screwdriver and the bottle opener, the first part is it is similar, but then the pulling out is not. So and by I think by asking similarity judgment, you are driving your subjects to pay attention to that part of the movement, of the manipulation that is necessary but not sufficient for the function to perform.
Yes, that's true. Yes.